What was it like working alongside Admiral McRaven?
Funny, you're the first person who's ever asked me that, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
I think of him every morning. I make my bed.
Oh, so do I. By the way, so do I. It's funny. Like, I make my bed. I'm like, I'm Admiral McRaven.
Yeah, and, every morning. And sometimes I'll get up to walk past the bed, and that speech goes in my head, and I got to go back, and I'm like, I got to make the bed. I got to feel accomplished.
This is, I don't want to say this is a loaded question, but this is a loaded question for me. There were some calls that I made that he didn't necessarily disagree with. And I never went back and said, oh, I was right. And there was an event that happened, and a couple people, like I had someone come up to me 10, 15 years later that said, thanks for making that decision, because I would have died that night. And there were some calls that were made in the field, et cetera, where I in hindsight, I made the right call. But Admiral McRaven was absolutely right to say, yeah, you needed to do that. Because he, in his role, he needed to tell me that. Because it actually made me better. Because I thought about that. I thought about that for 15, 20 years afterwards. I kept going back and thinking about, how could I have done it better? What could I have done better? And I literally replayed that event time and time and time and time again. I had some people say, dude, you got to get over that. But I kept thinking about that, and I kept getting better and better and better solutions. So I kept thinking these contingency plans. I would do this, I would do that. And it wasn't just like that decision better. It was, what are the steps I needed to do beforehand? It's like the one guy said, I would have died that night. Well, how did the chief and I put him in the position that he thought he was going to die that night if I didn't make a different call? Like, that's the first failure. So I give myself credit for having the gut to say no. Like, someone's going to die if we do this. Okay, so my gut was right, but the failure was not making sure this guy was prepared in the first place. That's where the chief and I let him down, failed. By the way, it's a learning. It's not a failure. It's a learning. And so because McRaven pushed me hard, he made me better. A lot of the people said, "Oh, I made the right call." And McRaven had me in the next day saying, like, I mean, there's a lot to the whole thing. He wasn't necessarily an easy guy to work for, but man, I respect him so much because he made me better. And that is applied to going forward today. And I hadn't seen it for 20 years. I told maybe one or two people on this, but I was he did a keynote at an event, big event in hospitality space, and I hadn't seen him for a long time. And I talked to him maybe once or twice. I talked a couple times before that. And the head of the HLA, or the number 2 guy, greeted him. We were both on the stage, greeted him, and he shook his hand. And he came up to me and said, I put my hand to shake him, and he gave me a hug. And if you look at the picture, like, I grabbed that guy so hard. Weird as it sounds, I needed that hug from McRaven. And by the way, you don't ever hug a 4-star admiral. Like, you don't ever. And so, like, I hear people call him Bill McRaven. I'm like, oh no, it's Admiral for me, and it's yes sir. Like, and by the way, I have Admiral friends, and I call them by their first name, but not Admiral McRaven. Like, you just don't call that guy Admiral McRaven. So I have a ton of respect for him, and even though it's just, he probably didn't even realize it, but just like, I needed that hug from him, which is kind of like the moral of the story is, if you see someone needs a hug, just give him the damn hug. But like that, him giving me a hug just kind of let all that rumination saying it's okay, because it made me better thinking about it. But he also said, like, hey, we're not always going to get it right, and we just keep trying to get better and better. And that was his goal. How do we get better, and how do we keep taking these things through? And so that was one of the things. So like John Paul DeHorio taught me learning language. McRaven taught me, learn from the past and keep making it better. Keep making it better. Keep making it better. Keep pushing. Keep pushing. There's so many things that he brought to the table. And probably he was not liked by everyone, but I had an executive who I worked with, and I was going to meet one of the top executives at Pepsi. And Carla Cooper was the person. She goes, oh, yeah, you can use my name here. Like, I got along with him. She goes, but you can't use my name everywhere, or you can't use introductions. Like, so not everyone's going to like you, and that's okay. And so you're going to have people, and you hear some people say, oh, I didn't like McRaven or whatever else. Or you'll hear people like that say they love McRaven, or you'll hear other people say, oh, I like that guy or that gal. You're not going to be liked by everyone. But you can learn from everyone, the ones you like and the ones you don't like. So back to your original question. I am so grateful for working for Admiral McRaven. Like, so grateful. Like, there is so many talented people that came out of that time when John McTighe was the CO that McRaven replaced, and then McRaven. Harwood came after them. Like, there's so many talented people that came out of SEAL Team 3 at that time. And most people will never know about them, but they set the stage for a lot of good things. And I mean, I mentioned one of the guys earlier, so went on to do some like legendary things in the undersea world. And he just recently retired, but yeah, a lot of talent that most people will never know about. And by the way, they were undiscovered talent. Most people will never know about them because they weren't there. But they either did stuff directly, or they helped train or lead other people to do great things later in life. So grateful to work for the guy.